No, thank you. Sleepy. Come back in an hour. Need sleepy. Please go away. Let me sleep for the love of God!
It's now time for the Billy C. Morning Show, part of the Billy C. Boxing Network. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C. Morning Show. Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody had a nice holiday, long weekend. Labor Day here in the United States. So, hey, you know, does that mean like fall is officially here? We'll have to see. The weather doesn't look like it. Today's show, she's being brought to you by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria, an Italian restaurant located in St. Simons Island, Georgia. Check out the website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com, or give my man a call, 912-268-2328, 912-268-2328. And don't forget, if you're heading south or heading north on I-95, stop off at Sal's. It's literally a 15-minute out of your way detour, and I promise it'll end up being a regular stop for you. It really will. The food is great. Mention the show and get a free cannoli with every meal you order. So hey, if there's 6 of yous and you all get something to eat, you all get dessert, man, on me. All right. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by GGG Boxing Magazine. You want a free copy? Visit our website, www.billycboxing.com, and click on the JKJ Boxing Magazine cover. And finally, today's show is being brought to you in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage, The Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold, and you can literally get a copy of it right now by visiting barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com. Or if you want an electronic version, you can go to Kindle or Nook. Find out why we have a 5-star rating across the board. And trust me when I tell you, you'll love the book. It's a quick read. Read the book and help me get the history books written the correct way. He's in the history books, but just not the right way. All right, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet. Captivating story, man. Trust me. Coming up later on the show, Dax Khan will be joining us. He'll be giving us an inside look at what's going on in social media. Plus, he's always got these inside tracks to some news and stuff, so we'll keep you posted on that. Don't forget, tomorrow, Blast from the Past. Alex Perpali will give us the lowdown on a fighter I didn't choose yet, so make sure you tune in tomorrow for our Blast from the Past. And don't forget, we will be doing the matchups after we're done with the Blast from the Past with the Title Bout Championship computer game. And that's always fun to see how our Blast from the Past fighters fare against the old-time greats. And, well, those are our Blast, but how they fare against today's champions. So, coming up in a little bit. Before I get into that, I just want to congratulate my man Brian with the Billy C. Challenge. He ended up coming out on top with a 3-way tiebreaker for the month of August. Billy C. Challenge, we give out a prize every single week, and Brian won a copy of the Title Bout Championship computer game. So if you beat everyone each month, you'll get a copy of the winner gets a copy of the Title Bout Championship computer game. So check that out. And if you want to join, it's easy. It's for free. Just drop me an email, billy@talkinboxing. That's TALKINBOXING.com. You still got a chance to win, a couple of months. Once you get 20 picks under your belt, you're eligible to win. So join now. It's free, and I'll give you all the rules when you drop me an email. Kell Brook, Triple G, fights coming this weekend. What does Kell Brook have to do to win? I'm going to tell you coming up in a little bit. And he does have a chance to win. I mean, some of the naysayers aren't giving this guy a chance, but I'm giving him a good chance of winning, and I'll tell you why. I got some quotes from Roman Chocolito Gonzalez and Carlos Cudras, who's the champ, by the way. And I don't know if you caught any of the photos, but he met Julio Cesar Chavez. And I tell you what, I think Cudras looks more like Julio Cesar Chavez than either of his two sons. So that's a little FYI for you. So all of that's coming up in a little bit. Before I get started, I am doing. I give you guys my football picks. All right, every week I'm going to give out my top picks, whether it be in college or pro, or maybe a combination of both. Well, last week I gave you guys 3 plays to play, and all 3 came up. I told you to play Auburn plus 7 against Clemson. I said Clemson was going to win, but it was going to be a tight game. I was right. Clemson won 19-13. I told you to play Georgia minus 2.5 against North Carolina. What a game that was. Georgia won 33-24. And I told you to take Alabama, despite giving up double digits, minus 11 against USC. And boy, did they slap around USC 52-6. In the Georgia game, number 1 rated high school quarterback Jacob Eason made his college debut, and he looked good. He went 8 for 12 for 131 yards and a touchdown. He ended up with a 90.2 quarterback rating. He also shared the spotlight behind center with Grayson Lambert, who was 5 for 8 for 54 yards passing. But make no mistake, Jacob Eason will eventually be the starting quarterback for the Dogs. Nick Chubb, man, if he stays healthy, Georgia Bulldogs are going to be tough to beat. He led the way for the Dogs, rushing for 32 touches for 222 yards and a couple of TDs, 6.9% yards, 6.9 average yards per carry. The team, they had 52 carries for 289 yards and 3 touchdowns, averaging 5.6 yards a carry. Tough to beat a team when you got numbers like that running the ball. The Bulldogs defense, which I thought would be a little stronger, they held North Carolina to, in the passing game, 24 pass completions of 40 attempts for 156 yards, no touchdowns, no INTs. They had them held to 3.9 yards per completion, which is tough to win when you can only get 3.9 in the passing game. They held them to 159 rushing yards of 19 attempts. They did give up a couple of touchdowns, and they gave up a high yards per carry, 8.4. But keep in mind the North Carolina Tar Heels didn't run the ball that much. They should have ran it more. My Crimson Tide blows away UFC, despite USC acting like they were going to, really do something. Quarterback Jalen Hurts led the Tide with 6 pass completions of 11 attempts for 118 yards. He had a couple of touchdowns and 1 on INT. He also rushed for 32 yards with 9 out of 9 carries with 2 touchdowns. Blake Barnett also lined up behind center, and he was 5 for 6 for 100 yards with a touchdown and no INTs. Damian Harris led the rushing stats with 9 carries for 138 yards, but collectively the Tide went 45 carries for 242 yards and 3 touchdowns. Darius Stewart had 4 receptions for 113 yards and a couple of TDs to lead the receivers. The defense, hey, listen, the Bama defense is like an NFL defense. 18 to 37 for 130 yards, no touchdowns and an interception is what they held USC to. And rushing, 64 yards, 2.1 a carry. Total yards given up for the game, 194. Roll Tide. So I figured I'd pat myself on the back a little bit there with that. We've got some emails to read. This is Chris from Canada. He says, I believe Triple G will knock out Kell Brook in the first 6 rounds. Should Triple G do what Kell Brook did and move up? He's asking me, should Triple G do what Kell Brook did and move up 2 weight classes to fight the winner of Ward Kovalev? If he doesn't, who's left to fight, and what will the Triple G haters say? The Triple G haters are... Hey, listen, the only people that don't like Triple G Triple G, are Floyd Mayweather fans. And the reason why they don't like Triple G is because Floyd Mayweather is criticized for not being a man and stepping up and challenging Triple G. Triple G isn't a monster middleweight, so they discredit him. You know, Triple G has fought everybody that he has. Well, let me rephrase it. He's fought everybody who would be willing to fight him. As far as stepping up a couple of weight classes, you know, maybe that will happen. Triple G's no spring chicken. But his one goal is to unify the middleweight division, and he's basically got two fighters to kick the crap out of in order to do so. Billy Joe Saunders, which he should have zero problem with, and Daniel Jacobs, which he should have zero problem with, providing Jacobs gets past Sergio Mora this weekend. So that's that. Thanks for the email, Chris. We got another email here. This one's from Pete from St. Petersburg, Florida. Pete from St. Pete. He says, hey, Billy C., I went with all of your college football picks this weekend, and I made $600. I want to send you a bottle of scotch. All right. You know, and truthfully, I charge for my picks, and I'm giving them away on this show for free. Tell me what kind and where to send it. I will tell you this. Email me, billy@talkinboxing, TALKINBOXING.com, Pete, and I will give you the address. But, hey, I'll take a bottle of Pinch. I love Pinch or any good scotch. I like the upper end blendeds, to be honest with you. But I will send you my mailing address. I'll be glad to take a bottle of scotch. We got another email here. And then I'm going to go through the fight results. I'm going to get down to business with how I think Kell Brook can actually upset Triple G. This one's from my man Mitch. He says, Canelo's going to pay Billy Joe Saunders good enough money to fight him instead of Triple G. Canelo's going to swoop in and steal the Saunders fight from Triple G. Why, you ask? Because of leverage. It'll give Canelo another belt if he wins. Then he can go to the bargaining table with Triple G with more leverage to lowball him. This stuff irks me. Triple G is going to wind up being 36 or 37 before he gets that signature fight with a guy who considers himself a real guy. I mean, real casuals, as well as these new age PBC lovers. A guy that if Triple G beats, they'll say it validates him as a fighter, which he thinks is ridiculous. He says, I got news for a lot of fans out there who criticize Gill and Macklin and Murray as opponents. Triple G has beaten more top 10 guys in his weight class than Canelo has. He says, repeat that. Triple G has beaten more top 10 guys in his weight class than Canelo has. He's beaten up more top 10 guys than most fighters have in their respective weight classes. What the F else do you want him to do? He says, I got another question. This one's for Larry. But I will ask him that. He says, also, rumors have been swirling around a Lomachenko-Salido match. Salido fought Mikey Garcia at Madison Square Garden in front of a packed house. Lomachenko fought in front of a packed house at Madison Square Garden a few months ago. Since the ridiculous rules changed in New York, shouldn't little brother next door, New Jersey, push to get some of these fights and try once again to be an East Coast power? These new investors who've bought into boardwalk properties have a chance for history to repeat itself at the expense of New York. Someone needs to get on the phone with Heyman and Aram and Oscar and DeBella, etc., and get this party started. By the way, to contradict this point I made, my sources tell me Peter Quillen may be fighting in New York at 168 in October or November. Stay tuned. Yeah, the new rules in the state of New York are definitely making it really hard for promoters to afford to be able to fight. I can't see that that new insurance policy, $1 million for potential brain damage in the future requirement in the state of New York. It just can't continue. The cost of that is chasing many promoters away from New York and actually preventing them from even considering New York State as a viable place for a fight. So we'll see. This past weekend, it was kind of slow, but we're going to get paid back big time this weekend and next weekend as our schedule really picks up here in the sport of boxing. On Saturday night, super lightweight Darwin Price improved to 11-0 with 6 knockouts when he scored a 7th-round stoppage over Javante Starks, who drops to 13-2 with 7 knockouts in Texas. Price dropped Starks in the 3rd round and then ended it in the 6th when Price prompted a stoppage by the referee at 152. Also in that card, Kent Cruz improved to 11-0 with 6 knockouts when he scored an 8-round unanimous decision over Ricky Edwards, who drops his first fight in his career. He's now 11-1. The way the judges scored it, 77-74 and 77-73 twice in favor of Kent Cruz. How about the unbeaten superstar Naoya Inoue? He improves to 11-0 with 9 knockouts and retained his WBO junior bantamweight title as he beat Pechibang-born Koki Jim via a knockout at 3 minutes and 3 seconds of the 10th round. He was winning on all the scorecards, but the fight was stopped and the full count rendered by Mark Nelson. Inoue improves to 11-0 with 9 knockouts, and Koki Jim drops to 38 wins, 8 losses, and a draw. Now, his 2 brothers also fight on that card. His younger brother, Takeyuma Inoue, he improved to 8-0 with 2 knockouts. He's in the same division. Despite hitting the canvas in the first round, he took care of top 15 ranked flyweight Froilan Salduar, who drops to 23-2 with a draw. The way the judges scored it, 2 of them saw it 97-90 and one had it 96-91, all in favor of Inoue. And the other brother, who's got 5 wins under his belt now because he took care of a Indonesian super lightweight champion in Herai Andriato, which was I said that wrong. Adrianto, Inoue fought for a regional title and won it. Andriato drops to 23-2 in that one. 1 minute and 20 seconds of the second round is when that ended. McJoe Arroyo loses his title. Jerwin Anikadas improved to 25-1 with a draw when he scored a 12-round unanimous decision over formerly unbeaten McJoe Arroyo to seize his IBF junior bantamweight title. Arroyo drops to 17-1. The scores were 118-109, 117-110, and 115-112, all in favor of the challenger, Jerwin Anikadas, who is now the champion. Also on Saturday, Carlos Diaz improved to 21-0 with 10 knockouts when he scored a 10-round unanimous decision over Samuel Gonzalez, who drops to 17-3. Took place in Mexico. The scores 97-93 twice, and actually 97-93 3 times. Also, how about an upset? Journeyman Francisco Gabriel Pena improved to 18 wins and 12 losses when he scored an 8-round unanimous decision over former 2-time world title challenger Miguel Beltran, who drops to 31-5, 77-76, and 2 judges had it 77-75 to give Pena the win. Also, in the super bantamweight division, Ray Vargas improved to 28-0 with 22 knockouts when he scored a 5th-round stoppage over former world champ Alexander Munoz, who drops to 38-7. The official time was 2 minutes and 22 seconds of the 5th round. On Friday night, we had a fight that you were able to watch on TV. It seemed to be the Mexico versus Puerto Rico rivalry that goes on, and we always get treated to some great fights. Antonio Gutierrez improved to 21-2 with a couple of draws, with 1 draw, when he won a 10-round unanimous decision over Jorge Melendez, who drops to 28-7, 97-92 twice for Gutierrez, and one judge. I'm sorry. Man, I'm having a rough day. I guess it was the holiday. I got too many hot dogs and hamburgers. 97-92 twice, 96-93, all in favor of Gutierrez. Also on that card, Christian Gonzalez improved to 15-0 when he scored a second round stoppage over Jonathan Corrales, who drops to 8-4 with a couple of draws. 1 minute 57 seconds of the second round was the official word on that one. A lot of stuff going on in the heavyweight division, and things back and forth about the Tyson Fury, Vladimir Klitschko. There was rumors that they were going to have a press conference, and it was going to take place yesterday, but then at the last minute, it was postponed. A rescheduled date will be announced. According to both sides, it looks like this fight will happen, but there was some stumbling blocks to prevent the rematch should happen, prevent the press conference to take place yesterday. So we'll keep our eyes on that one. Also, the talk about David Haye against Shannon Briggs. I haven't heard anything on that. Some people have been talking about it. I think Dax has an update on that a little bit later, so we'll see him about that. And how about Luis Ortiz and Alexander Ustinov? That fight is not happening again. When is the WBA going to realize that Ortiz doesn't give a crap about fighting Ustinov, not for the peanuts that he's being offered? This guy is in line to get a big fight. I think he's going to eventually get in there with Anthony Joshua, but apparently it was reported that they did not come to a deal, and we'll see what happens with that one. Also, Joseph Parker, we thought maybe the guy fighting Anthony Joshua next. It was announced that on October 1st, Joseph Parker will be stepping in the ring against 6'7" Alexander Dimitrenko. So we'll keep our eyes faced on that. Next weekend, Andy Ruiz is taking on Franklin Lawrence in California. Lawrence is 40 years old, and it's the youngest. At 40 years old, Yaya Lawrence is the youngest opponent that Ruiz has fought this year. What does that tell you about his level of opposition? Also, Alexander Povetkin has already, according to his team, started his training to fight Berman Stavern for the interim title, as you recall, due to Deontay Wilder's injury, keeping him out of the ring until January. The WBC has ordered an interim bout between Stavern and Povetkin. I think Povetkin is kind of getting the crap end of the deal here. As you also know, and has been reported by us, Don King is the guy that's claiming to promote this fight. I'll believe it when I see it. If you recall, Don King has actually won, not one, but two purse bids that he's had to relinquish because he hasn't been able to come up with the money. He's trying to get somebody to come up with this and fund it. Although it's a good fight, I think Don King just and I love Don King, but I just don't think he's got the juice anymore to do it. So that's what's kind of going on in the heavyweight division. With one other note, remember I was talking about the WBA and how the WBA kind of, Lucas Brown is their regular champion, and he was accused of testing positive after his win over Shagayev, and then they came up with this tournament of sorts, and then Franz Oquendo was a guy that got ordered a rematch with Ruslan Shagayev because there was some shenanigans that went on with Shagayev, but in between the two fights, Lucas Brown fought Shagayev and beat him. So now when the smoke clears, the WBA is actually ordering the Franz Oquendo against Lucas Brown fight, and according to several sources, those two teams are negotiating right now. So anyway, the other day, 7 days out, so on Saturday, we had weigh-ins for the two big fights this weekend. And Kudras, who's currently the world champion in the super flyweight division, the one Chocolito, Roman Gonzalez, is going to be challenging on Saturday. Weighed in 2.3 pounds heavier at the WBC 7-day weigh-in. He weighed 120 and 3/4 pounds. I'm sorry, 120.2 pounds. And Chocolito weighed 117.9. They both made the limit, which was 120 and 3/4 pounds for that one. And I got some quotes from both those fighters. Gonzalez, who's undefeated and moving up, he's the WBC flyweight champ, but he's moving up to challenge the super flyweight, which all great champions do. You know, they move up in weight and challenge legitimate champions. That's why when it's all said and done, should Roman Gonzalez continue his winning ways, will go down as probably the winningest fighter. He will shatter Floyd what's-his-name's record. And when you look deep into Gonzalez and who he's fought the best opposition available to him, despite being in a low weight class that doesn't get much publicity. But nonetheless, 45-0 with 38 knockouts, moving up in weight to fight a much bigger guy in Kudras, who's also undefeated at 35-0 with a draw and 27 knockouts. Kudras got to meet Hall of Fame former world champion Julio Cesar Chavez, and he says, this is the first time meeting Julio Cesar Chavez. Right away, he wanted to give me pointers on how to win Saturday night. He says he throws multiple combinations, but I'm too big and strong for him. I like being a world champion, and I plan on staying that way Saturday night. Doesn't matter to me if I win by knockout or decision. I just know I'm going to win. Gonzalez, he said, I know Carlos says a lot about my nickname, but on Saturday night he will feel the fist of chocolate. I need to throw combinations and keep him off guard to win this fight. This fight is for all of my people in Nicaragua, especially dedicated to my mentor, the late, great Alex Arguello. I don't think about other fights or how high I can move up. I am just focused on one fight, and that's Saturday night against Kudras. Tough to argue with this guy about being one of the best, if not the best, pound-for-pound fighter out there today, to be honest with you. But anyway, listen, I've been talking about how I feel that Kell Brook could possibly beat Triple G on Saturday night. And a couple of things I want to point out. Number one, Kell Brook is an undefeated fighter. He hasn't tasted the painful taste of a loss. And a lot of times when fighters are undefeated, until they get that first loss, they don't know how to lose. You know, he's 30 years old. I think he's going to come in looking bigger than Triple G Saturday night. But when you look at the tail of the tape, he's 1.5 inches shorter, and he's got a 1-inch reach disadvantage. He is ranked very high via the computer in the welterweight division at number 3 by the computer, and we have him ranked at number 4 currently. He does hold the IBF World welterweight title, which he won from Sean Porter in August of 2014, and has had 3 successful title defenses since, all by knockout. He beat Inuit Dan in the UK when Yodan couldn't come out after the 4th round. He also beat Frankie Gavin, an experienced quality fighter, stopping him in 6. And in his last fight, top-rated Kevin Bizier took care of him very quickly in 2 rounds. But none of those guys are as good as Triple G. Triple G is basically regarded as the world middleweight champion. He holds the WBC, WBA, IBF, and IBO world titles. The only one he doesn't have is the WBO, which he would get very easily if Billy Joe Saunders had the you-know-whats to step in the ring with him. Incidentally, the fight on Saturday will be contested for the WBC, IBF, and IBO world titles, not the WBA. The WBA is claiming that safety issues for Kell Brook is the reason why they're not letting him fight. And you know, the thing is that in a normal situation, you know, you would agree, but the WBC, because WBC is one of the belts, they require these weigh-ins, the 30-day weigh-in and the 7-day weigh-in. And one of the advantages to that is to ensure that a fighter isn't gaining weight the wrong way or losing weight the wrong way. And I think Kell Brook has demonstrated that he has put on the weight the right way. He looks in fantastic shape. All the photos I've seen and some workout clips, he looks really, really good. It looks like he's put on the weight. It looks like more of a natural weight for him than welterweight. Here's how I think Kell Brook can win the fight. Same way he beat Sean Porter. That's the bottom line. Kell Brook has to employ his boxing ability, his movement. He's got to be successful with his jab. He's got to be successful with his jab. He does have to unleash some power shots during this fight in order to keep Triple G on his toes. If you recall, if Triple G feels that he can't be hurt, he gets a little sloppy and he focuses on offense instead of defense. And when you let Triple G just focus on one thing, especially offense, he's a tough out. I think if you keep Triple G thinking that he's got to be tight with his defense, and he's still got to score points with his offense, and he's got to be a ring general and cut the ring off and keep Kell Brook where Triple G wants him, that's the chance that that's Kell Brook has in beating Triple G. I think Kell Brook does have the boxing ability to beat Triple G. I have said this all along about Triple G, that his ring generalship is really second to none. And I think that goes back a couple of decades, to be honest with you. There have been a lot of great fighters who use the ring and cut off the ring right and basic, what we call ring generalship, have performed at a high level. However, what Triple G does is he really forces fighters into what he wants them to do. It's pretty obvious. And not only is it obvious, it becomes robotic for Triple G. When he's fighting opponents, he seems to know where they're going to be, that next punch, where it's going to come from. And he's driving that bus. Kell Brook, in order to have a chance, in order to make it through this fight without getting knocked out, because make no mistake, if this fight does go to the scorecards, I think that Kell Brook could win the fight. I think that Kell Brook, if he fights a smart fight, could pick shots and pock shot Triple G enough to win on the scorecards if he's able to move, stick and jab, and as much as I hate the style, rip a page out of a Floyd Mayweather game plan. Hit a couple of times and run like hell and get to the other corner. That's what Floyd did for 49 fights. Floyd doesn't engage. Not because he doesn't have the hand speed and the punching accuracy, but because he's a chicken shit. And I think that if Kell Brook fights like a chicken shit, sort of like Floyd Mayweather, he's got a chance of beating Triple G. He's got the boxing skill. And let's face it, he does possess a 69% knockout ratio. Now, he hasn't fought anybody as big as Triple G in terms of weight class. But still, if I'm Kell Brook, and everybody is probably saying the same thing I am, that he's got to outbox Triple G, he's got to use movement, he can't let Triple G corner him, he can't let Triple G cut the ring off. As long as these things come naturally to Kell Brook, as long as these things aren't something that he's got to think about too much, then he's got a chance. If he tries to engage with Triple G, he's going to come up short. I really think that Kell Brook is not as much of a sacrificial lamb as some people say. Kell Brook is a quality fighter, and for the most part, he may not be as known here in the States as he is on the other side of the pond, because we only really got to see him a couple of times on our networks. But the truth of the matter is that Kell Brook definitely possesses the power, the skill set to steal a win from Triple G, and if he does get Triple G hurt or can land a bunch of shots, I believe that he does have the power to rock Triple G a little bit. Even though we haven't seen Triple G get rocked at all, I think that Kell Brook could do it. I think that the fight against Kell Brook will answer a lot of questions for both fighters. And the one thing I have to make a point about is that I give Kell Brook a lot of credit for even taking the fight, something that a lot of other fighters don't do. They don't take these big challenges, and ultimately they cherry pick, and people pound their chests with them, saying how great they are when realistically they shouldn't. So I give Kell Brook all the kudos in the world for even having the balls to fight Triple G, something that many other fighters don't do or haven't done yet. So I give him a lot of props for that. The fights this weekend are actually pretty good, pretty tight. I would say. We have a couple of other good ones. Daniel Jacobs is going to be fighting Sergio Mora in a rematch that a lot of people wanted to see. To be honest with you, a lot of people wanted to see that rematch because of the way that it ended. And I think that the controversy surrounding the ending, not that it wasn't a justified ending. I mean, the bottom line is Sergio Mora couldn't continue because of his ankle. But the bottom line is that the way Daniel Jacobs was acting was that he destroyed Sergio Mora, and that wasn't the case. So I think that the rematch was a justified one, and I'm looking forward to it. And that's taking place, this weekend. So we'll be looking forward to that fight. Also, another fight on that card, Robert Easter is taking on Richard Comey. And then a fight on CBS Sportsnet with Jim Ross, who's actually part of Fight TV, which we're glad to be part of. He's going to be calling the action with Al Bernstein, so I'll be looking forward to that. That's a good fight between Steve Claggett and Emmanuel Robles. And then, of course, Triple G, Kell Brook. Chocolito is challenging Kudras for his title. Jesus Soto Carras against Kamagagi. That's another good fight. And I was wrong about the Andy Ruiz fight. That's this weekend. I mistakenly said that it was next weekend. So we got some decent fights. And also Travis Kaufman is fighting again in the heavyweight division against Josh Gormley. So we got some big fights, and we got some good ones on the Billy C Challenge. So good luck to everyone on that one. And joining us right now with his inside scoop on some stuff, plus social media, is our very own Dax Khan. What's up, Dax?
What's going on? Good morning, everyone. How was your Labor Day?
It was a busy one. It's I didn't have a chance to really throw down burgers and dogs like everybody else. But anyway, I know
Labor
you're...
Day, man, you're supposed to be out there doing labor.
Yeah, that's exactly what I had to do. But I'm excited to hear what you got cooking. I know you were pretty psyched about some inside scoops you got for us and some social media updates. Go ahead, man. I'm waiting.
Andy Ruiz, you just mentioned him. He's supposed to be fighting on the undercard of Klitschko Fury 2 against Huey Fury.
Really? Well, he's fighting this weekend.
Yeah, that's from what I understand. That's signed, sealed, and delivered. I've heard that from more than one source. Good thing about that fight is finally we're going to get some answer on one of those guys. There's question marks on both. They're pretty much, they've been dragging their feet, or their handler's been dragging their feet. So whoever wins that one is going to be a factor in the division. The other one's just going to stay where they are.
Now, wait a minute. Are you talking about this weekend's fight between Ruiz and Yaya Lawrence?
No, I'm talking about Andy Ruiz is going to win that fight. I'm talking about when he fights Huey Fury. That fight's actually going to have some significance to it.
Yeah, what's surprising about that fight, Dax, is I just was talking earlier that Andy Ruiz. All right, check this out. Andy Ruiz this year, he happens to be fighting Franklin Lawrence, who's the youngest opponent he's faced this year, and Lawrence is 40. So for him stepping in with Huey Fury, that's going to be almost half the age of. It is half the age of Franklin Lawrence. So finally, Andy Ruiz fights a real body, huh?
Yeah, because Huey's I think Huey's only 23, 24 years old.
I think he's just about 20 because he was a teenager. Remember, his goal was to break Tyson's record and win a champ.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yes, come to think of it, you're right. Not to cut you off, but I always forget, Tyson himself is only, 28?
Yeah, well, we'll see if he continues to fight. That's dragging out. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that tidbit in, so go ahead, finish with some of your other stuff.
Actually, speaking of heavyweights and guys who talk a lot, David Hay and Shannon Briggs been going out there. Shannon Briggs, he can get kind of annoying, but I kind of love this new comment he said about David Hay. He called him softer than a cheese biscuit, and that David Hay's avoiding him. Well, you remember, like I talked about that earlier, that there's no movement on that. But remember, David Hay publicly stated that if he fought on the undercard of David Hay's last fight and won, that those two guys would fight each other. And there's been no discussion about that, right? Not one. Not one from David Hay, anyway. But another guy who likes to talk a lot and call out a lot of names is, Antonio Tarver. For some reason, he still thinks that he's relevant to the sport, especially the heavyweight division. A name that he's been calling out, which I think he shouldn't have, is Dillian White. Dillian and Eddie Hearn have been trying to get Antonio Tarver into the ring for October 8th. After Tarver made a lot of comments, now Dillian White has pretty much he's done every last-ditch effort he could to get Antonio Tarver to sign his contract. He's even made videos and posted him when he's driving, talking about Antonio Tarver is he's an old man, how he's ancient, and Tarver's on social media, and he's saying stuff. You're not worth because you never won, and that's not the case for me. I don't need you. I did fancy the fight, which of course that's code word for I don't want it, And then Dillian White comes back, and says, "You're an old man living in the past. You have no other options. Just take the fight, son." Antonio Tarver, if I'm not mistaken, 3 or 4 years ago, before him and Steve Cunningham ever faced off, Antonio Tarver did something similar, and there was some sort of campaign to where if you got 100 tweets or 100 likes or 10,000 likes or 10,000 retweets, they were actually going to make the fight. Do you remember that?
No, but you know what? I could care less. Antonio Tarver, I've always said this, Dax, and I can't recall if you agree or disagree, but Antonio Tarver was never anything impressive. His best win was the win over Roy Jones Jr. And the thing is that the guy was one of the most boring fighters ever to lace on a pair of gloves. How he keeps getting opportunities is beyond me. And the only reason is because people happen to know who he is. Now, as a ringside analyst, he's great. He does a great job. But as a fighter, his days are behind him. I know he's got some financial issues, and he's just trying to get a payday. It's not going to come against Dillian White, I would think. But I think Tarver is washed up, and he was a never was, in my opinion.
I might have to agree with you. I just think he caught Roy Jones Jr. at the right time.
Exactly. And Roy Jones, listen, Roy Jones Jr., it's obvious that, he's hung on way too long now. But I think that the fight against Tarver was indicative of him maybe, hanging on too long since then. You know what I mean? So I'm not taking anything away from Roy Jones's career because he's got much more pedigree and history behind him than Antonio Tarver ever had or ever will. So I hope somebody knocks the crap out of him just to have him officially know that he's finished. Or maybe he already knows. I don't know.
I think he might know, or else he'd be taking this fight with Dillian White. Now, today's topic was Kell Brook and Triple G. There's a rumor that Matthew Macklin came by the Hatton's gym a few weeks ago, and he spoke to Kell Brook. And people that were there say that Kell Brook almost looked twice the size of him. And that, this added muscle on Kell Brook, there's a rumor that this has been going on for quite some time. They've been building the muscle onto Kell Brook. This isn't just recently. So, this plan to leave the welterweight division and maybe the fight with Triple G kind of fell into place after the Chris Eubank Jr. Fight fell through. But, Kell Brook was more or less looking to leave that welterweight division. They also said that, Martin Murray, who's a big guy and he's a tough guy, and they knew what he was up against when he faced Golovkin. But, that's another reason why the team that Brook's surrounded with, they did this, slowly as soon as they heard that, the Golovkin fight was going to come on. And they used everything that went wrong in the Martin Murray fight to use into this fight. So as you were stating before, Kell Brook is a live underdog. Ingle, the trainer, Dominic Ingle, the trainer of Kell Brook, says that, in the past, he would realize that once Kell kind of reached the welterweight limit, when they were in the ring doing mitts, he can feel Kell's power kind of lessen. He said that's not the case here. He says actually right now Kell Brook feels like he's hitting harder on the mitts than he has ever done in the past. So, this is a very interesting fight considering at the 7-day weigh-in, Golovkin came 162.9, Kell 167.8. So this is going to be a lean and mean, no pun intended, Kell Brook that steps into that ring. Also that weekend, Roman Gonzalez and Carlos Cuadras are going to fight. This is a big fight. A lot of people are claiming, Bill, that this fight here could determine who the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the sport is. Now, when you speak to those two, just this weekend, Naoya Inoue, the undefeated Japanese WBO super flyweight champion, he had a big win. Now, according to Hideshi Ohashi, the former two-time minimum weight champion and head of Ohashi Boxing, that as soon as Inoue heals up, he's going to seek the winner of Gonzalez and Cuadras, and that's going to be big for the little guys in the sport. Over in Japan, nothing sells like the small fighters, and if this fight can take place, the winner of Cuadras and Gonzalez against Inoue, you have to realize here, anything under 118 pounds can suddenly become relevant worldwide. Could you imagine how much more boxing we'd see if we had guys under 118 pounds headlining and main eventing on cards across the world?
I wonder, first of all, I would love that fight. And I mentioned, and I'm talking about Inoue against the winner of Cuadras, Gonzalez. And I mentioned earlier, Dax, and I know you agree with me, we've talked about this many times, about Chocolatito being a guy that, will eventually have the undefeated, if he continues winning, of course, will eventually have that undefeated record. The difference between him and who is that this guy is fighting the best, and he's challenging himself, because a lot of people don't realize that he's moved up in weight to fight Cuadras, and Cuadras is a damn good fighter. It's not like he's it's not like he's cherry picking. And the winner of that fight against Inoue would be a huge fight. There's so much fanfare behind Inoue right now, and I'm just curious to know what you think. Do you think that fight would be here in the States? I mean, do you think HBO would pick something like that up, or do you think that Chocolatito would end up going to Japan?
I think that it would happen in Japan, and if HBO was smart, what they would do is they would broadcast it from, whether, it would have to be a tape delay due to the time difference, but they would definitely broadcast that because, in money-making terms, speaking of the fighters and promoters, and that, there'd be no draw if that fight took place here in the United States, unfortunately. When you stated something perfect there, when you said, Carlos Cuadras is a good fighter, but you know what? due to the lack of mainstream coverage here in the United States. And not even just the United States, maybe even in the UK. People don't understand how good he is because there's no footage on him, and he hasn't really had any of that mainstream exposure. A lot of people don't believe that Roman Gonzalez is that good because the only exposure that most mainstream fans have ever seen is the footage of him on the Triple G cards.
Right. No, listen. But all you have to do is watch it and see how tight he is, like with meaning tight, meaning with his skill set. He throws a lot of punches. He's hard to hit. He's technically sound. I mean, he's textbook. I wanted to also mention one thing about the Brook fight and the fact that he is really put on that weight in my opinion correctly. It's been said that that he is now his mandatory for his IBF welterweight title. I believe he's got the IBF title that he's got to now fight Errol Spence. I don't think he's ever going to go back, and I've said this before. I don't think he's ever going to go back, win, lose, or draw Saturday night. I don't think he's ever going to go back to welterweight. I mean, isn't it hard for a fighter to put on that kind of weight, especially the way he has with muscle and all of that, to go back down in weight? I mean, wouldn't that really weaken him, and wouldn't it take him a long time to do so?
Yeah, we spoke about that a few weeks ago, I believe. And one example we had used was Roy Jones, even though that was a much later time in Roy Jones' career. But another guy who's a prime example that happened to was Chris Bird. Remember when he did that and he moved down to, I believe, light heavyweight, and he fought Sean George. Chris Bird looked like a shell of himself. And at that point in time, Chris had pretty much only lost to the Klitschko's. So and I think Ibeabuchi. But even at a younger age, where Kell Brook is, that's a lot of muscle to lose, and that takes a long time. You're not going to lose that type of muscle in 2, 3, 4 months, even 6 months, or even a year to do it properly. So what might end up happening is the IBF may end up stripping him if Kell Brook can't get down there and fight Errol Spence at a weight where he's really in tip-top shape, because Errol Spence is definitely not a guy you want to go in there against half-cocked. Actually, you give Errol Spence a year or two, and I think he might even be a more dangerous opponent than Triple G in terms of his textbook fashion and how he attacks. I was speaking to somebody the other day, and people were trying to say, who does Errol Spence remind you of? What fighter, a younger fighter of the past, does Errol Spence remind you of? Some guy said, Errol reminds him of a young Mike McCallum, the body snatcher. I said, what he reminds me of is a young James Toney, when James Toney was actually the pound-for-pound fighter of the sport at middleweight. If you watch young James Toney fights and you watch the way Errol Spence attacks his opponents, the way he applies that pressure, minus the shoulder roll, it's pretty much a mirror image, and that's a big compliment for any fighter.
Yeah, it's hard to remember James Toney when he was a junior middle and middleweight, but he was good and fluid and all of that. But listen, we got a lot of good fights this weekend.
Yeah, we do. And then a few other things. Peter Quinlan, rumor is he moved over to Virgil Hunter.
Virgil Hunter, I think he's overrated. I really do.
I know you do, but you know what? Virgil Hunter seems to be one of the hottest tickets in the sport, huh?
Why? I mean, what does he have to show that would attract fighters to him? Aside from his connection with Al Heyman. I mean, Andre Ward is a boring fighter, and how much credit do you give him versus Andre Ward's athletic ability and God's given talent? I mean, I'm sorry, but he didn't do much for Amir Khan, and he worked with someone else that just lost too. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I think he's overrated, but that's my opinion.
Pacquiao's going to start his official U.S. camp for the Jesse Vargas fight tomorrow. He's going to head here to the U.S. So that's another good fight we're looking forward to.
Yeah. Well, no, wait a minute. Is he coming to the U.S.? I thought he said he was going to train solely in the Philippines this time.
Yeah, from what my inside source says, Manny's going to be here tomorrow, September 7th, to start his official camp. And we know that when Manny arrives in the United States, it doesn't matter who the opponent is, that's when the official Manny Pacquiao camp starts. It's always seemed to be the issue in the past that Manny's camps pretty much they condense down to about 2 weeks because at home over in the Philippines he doesn't get a chance to completely train, whether it's family or due to the fact that so many people are always trying to get a picture of him or just see what he's doing. That Manny Pacquiao doesn't get the opportunity to fully train.
Plus, he's a politician. And the president of the Philippines right now is kind of wacky too, man. He's saying some crazy stuff.
Rocky, did you see the Stallone death hoax?
Did you see that to date, since the beginning of the year, that they have executed 20,000 people? 20,000 people, unless that was a misprint. 20,000?
Who was that?
The Philippines, the war against drugs, they're killing all the convicted drug dealers. Maybe
I don't know about the 20,000.
Maybe it was
I think that would be more talked about if that was the truth.
Maybe it's 2,000. Maybe it's definitely.
It has to be. Like I said, did you see the Sylvester Stallone death hoax that went viral?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, somebody actually went and they photoshopped a picture of Sylvester Stallone on the background with a news broadcaster of not only CNN but Fox News. And you know how somebody passes away, they'll put a picture of the person in the background, they'll put the date of birth and the date of death on there. So what they did was they did it with Sylvester Stallone yesterday, and they had, it's a Fox News broadcast and a CNN broadcast they did, and it's a picture of Sylvester Stallone, and it says from 1969 to 2016, we're going to miss you. Now, this went viral. A lot of people just could not believe that this happened. Now, of course, as soon as I seen it, I knew this was not true because Sergei Kovalev has been with Sylvester Stallone over the last few days. He's been posting a lot of pictures of him and Stallone. But, it was completely amazing that a lot of people fell into this until a few minor flaws were pointed out inside this Photoshop picture. One, the fact that they spelled Sylvester Stallone wrong. There's 2 L's in his last name, not just one. Secondly, the date of birth, 1969 to 2016. You know what that means, Bill? That means Stallone was 7 years old when Rocky was made.
Yeah, no, I know. He was like,
and you know what?
Like 49,
you think about
right?
this, Bill. If he was 7 years old when that movie was made, not only does the movie Rocky and all the sequels, they have the most editing errors of any series of movies in history. But there's some certain things on there that would really just totally take away the enjoyment of the movie for me. And all of boxing, when you think about it.
Wow. Yeah, no.
Well, think about this. Gazzo. He had a 7-year-old kid running around the streets of Philadelphia collecting money from degenerate gamblers.
Yeah, I was way off. I guess they're telling me, I don't know where I saw 20,000, but obviously I'm way off.
Has to be.
Yeah, no. They executed, according to Coach, they've executed 300, but we got some other people like my man Paul and the handle Wow in the chat room right now. Basically, what's happening is the communities are also shooting the drug dealers in the streets, and they're killing other people too. So maybe that's where I saw the 2,000. I'm totally wrong about the 20,000, but maybe there's been 2,000 total deaths. But
in other countries, they have a lot of different things that it would never work in the United States, and how it goes on in some of these other countries. How it works out for these people, I'm not sure, because, they're a lot smaller countries, but they also don't have, the type of police force that larger countries do. There's some countries down in South and Central America that actually have something called the machete law, which is where you get somebody who is, let's say, a drug dealer, or you get somebody who was sent back from another country, somebody who's a pedophile or a rapist, let's say. And, people from these villages or people in the town, these towns, they always have, like, a boss. And what they'll end up doing is they'll take this one person who is creating all this havoc or is putting everybody else in danger, and they'll literally take them into the middle of the street, and they'll chop their head off. And
Nice.
It's actually called the machete law. As long as there is a valid reason for it, the government will actually allow this to happen.
yeah, stay away from
I
stay
know
away from those.
somebody that this actually happened with, a family member of theirs, and they actually had to flee the country due to the fact that they were afraid of these machete laws. Not that it was going to happen with them. It's just that type of living. They couldn't be around that.
Well, I tell you what, I'd stay clear of a country like that. I do know that Sylvester Stallone is ordering the death penalty for whoever misspelled his name. I know that. So
it is. Just think about those things. Think about Rocky, and the Pennsylvania State Athletic Commission has to be the worst in history. Not once did they ask for any birth certificate or licensing before they put the 7-year-old in the ring with Apollo Creed, who's the most built-up champion in all of history. Not only did a 7-year-old take him the distance, but in the rematch when the kid was 12, he knocked him out. You talk about Floyd Mayweather being a cherry picker. Apollo Creed could have fought anybody.
This is true. This is true.
And the worst thing over there is Father Carmine. He's always given the blessing. He has no problem with Rocky going out there as a three-team fighting for money. As a matter of fact, Father Carmine married him to Adrian, who may not have been the best-looking girl in the world, but at 7 and 10 years old, she was a pedophile going out with Rocky. The movie, I'll never look at it the same if Sylvester Stallone was born in 1969. The one good thing about it is, at some point in time, Bill, somebody said, a 7-year-old kid should not be that big. He should not hit that hard. He's either on anabolic steroids or the beef at Paulie's Warehouse is contaminated with meldonium. This is how Vada and Wada came about in the sport. I'm certain of it.
Yeah, I think he was born in 49, but...
No,
anyway.
actually, I think he was born in 43 or something. It was just... the reason why I find it so amusing is we always talk about how easily misled boxing fans are.
Oh, they don't...
And in this sport that, they believe anything that is told to them by broadcasters or what they read on social media sites. And if people would actually have paid attention to those dates, they would have said to themselves, there is no possible way that Sylvester Stallone was born in 1969, and the guy has 2 L's in his name, not just one. There was pages, tribute pages, for this guy about how sad and upset people were over his death in just a matter of hours, and it was all a joke.
Well, the bottom line is a lot of young people can't add too well either, so they probably
These are grown people.
Well, they can't either, but anyway.
And what about our friend Haley Zale?
Yeah, what's going on with that?
Well, I told you that off the air. Haley, our friend, she's the niece of Tony Zale, the Man of Steel, who people out there may not know. They may not have remembered her from coming on the show. And she was headed up the Bring Back the Belts campaign after Tony and Carmen Basilio's belts were stolen from the IBHOF. The International Boxing Hall of Fame, rather. Haley, she's an actress. A lot of people might know her from the Showtime series Nurse Jackie. When that ended in New York, Haley went out to Chicago recently to try and pick up the next stage of her career. So last week, she was actually robbed on the street. Somebody took her purse and ran. And so Haley, being Haley, she posted about it, how upset she was, saying, it never happened in New York. She comes to Chicago, she's not here a week, and all of a sudden somebody takes her purse. And she posted a picture of where it happened. And it just happens to be, Bill, it was underneath one of Donald Trump's international towers. And so she gets a phone call from the head of Donald Trump's security. And he has Donald Trump call her. And, Donald, I don't know if they were worried that Haley was kind of bashing the Don, or, they were blaming him, as saying that, considering that he's presidential nominee, that things should be safer around there, whatever the case may be. Donald Trump himself reached out to Haley Zale. She says they spoke for a while. Don was a great guy, and now that Donald Trump and his head of security, they're actually scouring all the surveillance videos in the area to try and see who robbed Haley Zale. What kind of story is that? You couldn't make it up if you tried.
No, and hopefully he'll find out. He should also try and find out who stole the belts, too.
Yeah, you would think so, and if anything, maybe he can help with that, and Haley can help him out with hair.
Hey, maybe. But, hey, Dax, great job, as usual, giving us the lowdown and inside scoops, and we'll be looking forward to you next time, my man.
All right, everybody, talk to you soon.
All right, that's Dax Khan, and don't forget, you can check out his column up on BillyCBoxing.com as well. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow. We're going to be doing our Blast from the Past on Bobby Ches. Bobby Ches, former world champion in the light heavyweight division and also cruiserweight division. And he also challenged for the heavyweight title. So we'll talk about Bobby Ches tomorrow. And obviously Alex will put him up against some of today's light heavyweight and cruiserweight champions in the title bout championship computer game. Our It's Too Early for a Trivia question was a tough one. And I got a lot of response, but only one correct answer. The question was, which former heavyweight champion's pro boxing career spanned the most years? George Foreman, although, if you add the 10 years that he didn't fight, that's not really what we were looking for. We were looking for the guy who fought the longest, concurrent. And my man Clay from South Carolina, I don't know where in South Carolina, he just put Clay from South Carolina. Now he's got to send me his address because he knew that Bob Fitzsimmons was the guy. He had 17, he started at 17 years old in 1880. And he continued boxing until 1909, which was 29 years as a professional. 29 years. And then he came back in 1914 at the age of 50, fighting 34 years after his first pro bout, which obviously shattered even George Foreman's record. So congratulations from my man Clay. And Clay, you got to drop me an email with your address so we can send you some prizes. Today's It's Too Early for a Trivia question is this. What former world champion in his first professional fight defeated a man he would later beat for the world championship? Which former world champion in his first pro fight defeated a man he would later beat for the world championship? If you know this answer and you're the first one to email me, Billy@TalkinBoxing, that's TalkinBoxing.com, you'll win a great prize as well. Good luck to everybody on that. And finally, on this day, September 6th, in 1986, our blast from the past tomorrow, Bobby Ches knocks out Slovenian Kakar in the 5th round to win the IBF World Light Heavyweight title. Took place in Vegas. On this day in 1987, Virgil Hill knocks out Leslie Stewart in the 4th round to win the WBA World Light Heavyweight title, and that took place in Atlantic City, New Jersey. On this day in 1997, Eric Morales knocks out Daniel Zaragoza in the 11th round to win the WBC Junior Featherweight title. Took place in Texas. On this day in 1992, Manny Melchor wins a 12-round decision over Philian Lukaming Kawan to win the IBF Strawweight title. Took place in Thailand. And on this day, September 6th, in 1920, Jack Dempsey knocks out Billy Miskey in the 3rd round to retain his world heavyweight title, and that took place in Brenton Harbor, Michigan, on this day in 1920. Hey, man, that concludes our show for today. Make sure you tune in tomorrow morning. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, ciao, baby.